people. Well, it's 6:30, and I guess we're going to begin in just a moment. As we sit here in this moment, as we're about to enter into Shabbat, I'd just like to welcome us together as we together form a holy community, even if online, but together. And hopefully we will have the rest that we're looking for, the peace that we're looking for, and the community that we're looking for on this Sabbath. And with that in mind, I will ask Rabbi Sobo to begin.
Letting people in from the waiting room. Well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It is so wonderful to be here. And I think Grant is starting us off with Hine Mautov.
Hine ma tov u'ma na'im שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. עולם חסד, עולם חסד ייבנה, ידנאי, נאי, נאי, ידנאי, נאי. עולם חסד ייבנה, ידנאי, נאי, נאי, ידנאי, נאי. חסד ייבנה, ידנאי, נאי, נאי, ידנאי, נאי. עולם חסד ייבנה, ידנאי, נאי, נאי, ידנאי, נאי. I will build this world from love. Yadidai, dai, dai, yadidai, dai. And you must build this world from love. Yadidai, dai, dai, yadidai, dai. And if we build this world from love, yadidai, dai, dai, yadidai, dai. Then God will build this world from love. Yadidai, dai, dai, yadidai, dai. Let's hum the melody. We will now continue with our blessing over the Shabbos candles. If you have some and would like to light them, please join me in the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. We will now continue with our prayer Lecha Dodi. Yalla la 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 Lecha Dodi, Yalla la 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 Likrat Kala, Yalla la 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 Pnei Shabbat, Pnei Shabbat Nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad yishmi'anu elam yuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad l'shemo tiferet Shabbat, Pnei Shabbat Nekabela. Likrat Shabbat, Lechu v'nelcha, Ki mekor avracha, Berosh Mikeidem Nesucha, Sof Maaseh v'machshava Techila. Yalla la 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 Lecha Dodi, Yalla la 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 Likrat Kala, Yalla la 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 Pnei Shabbat, Pnei Shabbat Nekabela. Itoreri, Kiva orech niuri, uri shir daberi, kevod Adonai alech niglai. Yalla la 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 Lecha Dodi, Yalla la 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 Likrat Kala, Yalla la 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 Pnei Shabbat, Pnei Shabbat Nekabela. Boi v'shalom Ateret balav Gam v'simcha will now continue with our Chatzikash. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabba Be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael Bagala bagala uvizman kariv V'imeru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam U'amei Almaya Yitbarach Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudisha brechu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damin ran bi'alma v'imeru Amen. We now continue with our Baruch, and we ask you to please rise, whether that be physically or spiritually. Yadinai, dai, yadinai, dai, yadinai, Am I awake? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, bechokma poteach she'arim, uvitvanam she'neitim umachalif et hazmanim, umisader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono. Bore yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil ben yom uvein layla. Adonai Tzivaot Shemo, El Chai v'Kayam Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. All goodness and truth are yours, O God. May no evil estrange us from you. Let error not confound us. Help us understand your will. In adversity and prosperity, may your law be our light. May our deeds reflect your love. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. You may be seated as we continue with the V'ahavta. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים לחיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
בקודש נורא תהילות עושה פלא נורא תהילות עושה פלא. Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai. Who is like you? ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up our guardian to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel for your name's sake. Be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
We now ask you to rise, whether that be physical or spiritually, for the Amidah. Adonai tzifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu. Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanara, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chazdei Avot v'Imaot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. מוריד הטל, מקלקל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהלו לך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. You may be seated.
May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. You are with us in our prayer, our love, and our doubt, in our longing to feel your presence and do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadecha b'yirah na'avod. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth, which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, u'lecha na'eh lehodot.
Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon לכל השלום, כי אתה הוא מלך אדון, לכל השלום. שלום רב ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
Baruch atah Adonai hamivarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. We now take a moment for our own silent prayers and meditations.
רצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי אדוני צורי וגואלי.
Achrei Mot Kiroshim. That's our double portion for this week. Just the name alone seemed striking to me. Achrei Mot, after the death of Aaron's two sons. And then we get Kiroshim Tihiyu, you shall be holy. Aaron's sons Nadav and Avihu are priests. They are qualified to serve as much. But we learn prior to these portions that they bring alien fire and get killed for doing so. By most understandings of the text, they were doing a good thing, bringing an offering to God, but that their method and or intentions behind that act weren't appropriate. I won't delve farther into that scene, but this idea that after a tragedy, the Israelites are given a set of moral standards, the holiness code, that is found in Parshat Kedoshim, in order that they might do better. The past few weeks, I've heard several stories and been reminded of people in a position of authority or control that acted beyond the bounds of our ethics. Most notably related to the conviction of Chauvin in the death of George Floyd that resurfaced earlier this week, but others that popped up on my news feeds relating to sexual boundaries being crossed by men in leadership or bullying, or, well, let's just say my news feed hasn't been so positive the last few weeks. But if we take our portions, acharei mot, after these deaths, after these losses, after this heaviness, kiddoshim, let there be holiness. So that got me thinking. After the death of George Floyd, after this trial, how or where will we find holiness? Why not start with the holiness code of this portion? It's a goldmine for sermon material. We could look at verse 15 and the command to judge your kinsmen fairly, and I could say that holiness might be found in a fair trial. I could go to the next verse, don't stand idly by the blood of your fellow, and say that holiness might be found by those who are able to step in when injustice is occurring. Or the next verse, you shall not hate your kinsfolk in your heart. Holiness perhaps is found in the push to uncover our own implicit biases. Or the continuation of that verse, reprove your kinsman, but incur no guilt because of him. Holiness might be found by the brave police officers that testified against Chauvin, or those calling out other acts of injustice and misconduct around them. We could go to verse 18. Don't take vengeance or bear a grudge. Holiness might be found by treating law enforcement with respect despite the bad actions of a few. And it could keep going all the way till we get to verses 33 and 34. You shall not wrong a stranger who resides in your land. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as one of your citizens. Perhaps I could say that holiness might be found when we can see that on the inside, our blood is no redder than the person next to us. To do any of these wholeheartedly, we must remember that we are all created in the image of God, and as such are imbued with a certain degree of holiness because of that piece of God within us. That intrinsically all humans, regardless of race, gender, faith, sexuality, and more, are all equal at the core of our tradition. But if we are holy by nature, then why does God need to command us to be holy at the beginning of Parshat Kiddushim? We find in our double portion, God saying, you shall keep my laws and my rules, for the one who does them shall live by them. Being holy and living a holy life are perhaps two different things. So this portion offers a myriad of ways to live up to the holiness that is inherently within. It is not enough to passively be holy. Ha'emek Davar, an early 19th century commentary, commenting on the creation narrative in Genesis, and Adam became a living soul, nefesh chaya, means either being alive or lively. Thus, an animal, Ha'emek Davar tells us, is chai, is alive when in good physical state. But not so for man, for whom being alive presupposes also intellectual perfection. A Jew born to serve God is chai, alive, only when he fulfills this mission of his life as it is stated, but the just shall live by his faith. To be alive is not just to be, as Ha'emek Davar states, in a good physical state, like it is for animals. By this understanding, to be alive, to be holy, requires thoughtful action and good choices. When I watched the video from the day of George Floyd's death alongside the teachings of this week's portion, there are examples of these imperatives being put to use, and there are examples of them being transgressed in that video. But as much as we can acknowledge how rare it is for a police officer to be convicted of a murder charge for use of force or excessive use of force, as much as this may be, as the headlines said, a watershed moment. As much as we've come to face racism and the excessive use of force by police and more this past year, it doesn't really feel entirely like justice because George Floyd and others like him are still dead, which makes the command to live by this holiness code all the more poignant. We are here. We are alive in every sense of that word. We have witnessed through the videos the events of Floyd's death, and we can choose to commit to living holy lives each day by fulfilling these mitzvot, by acting to their spirit and beyond, by recognizing the image of God in everyone we meet, so that after these deaths, after these losses, we may seek holiness. There is holiness as well in healing. And so at this time, we think of those in our congregation who are in need of a prayer for healing. As we pray this week, especially for Bob Archer, Diane Schreier, Jim Hagan, Ellie Mendelson, Simone Sofian, Rhonda Hathaway, Gershon Reuven Ben Esther, Linda Dean Harris, Jenny Curtis, Rivka Bat Avraham Visara, Marilyn Cummings, Dee Shaw, Sherry Alpert, William Rossi, Estelle Norija, Rosalind Moss, Jeanette Patton, Charlotte Davison Gates, Pat Bloom, Ronald Epstein, James Hockman, Judith Perlman, Helen Fine, Jeremy Wise, Christine Wagner, Tracy Huddleston, Joe McKenna, Ellen Goodrich, Mark Romanowski, Jerry McDonald, Richard Lieberman, Joel Pinsker, Marty Sacker, Laura Holtzinger-Levin, Bob and Gert Kahn, Dave Bussey, Chelsea Smith, and Deborah Seidel. Baruch atah Adonai Rofeh HaCholim. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings healing to the sick, as we all pray together with the words on the screen in front of us.
Mi sheberach avoteinu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
And as we are in the period of the Omer, we say, Hineni muchan umizuman lekayem mitzvat aseh shel sfirat haomer. I am ready to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat haomer. Our praise to you, Adonai, sovereign of all, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to count the Omer. Today is the 27th day, which is 3 weeks and 6 days to the Omer. We will rise physically or spiritually as we turn to the words of Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
At this time, our thoughts now turn to those whom death has recently taken from us. Of course, we are in a period of Aninut for Linwood Coates, Shiv'ah for Harriet Blumenthal, and a period of Shloshim for Shelley Charles, B. Harris, Rabbi Michael Cook, and Ellen Elovitz. And we remember those who have died at this season in years past, for whom we are observing Yahrzeit. We remember Rose D. Block, Mose Bramson, Catherine Brooke, Leopold Brown, Carolyn Kaplan, Joseph T. Klein, Marvin Cutler, Harriet Jacobs Daniels, Henry Euphrat, Jack W. Feigelson, Neil B. Frank, Joseph Freemus, Esther I. Garfinkel, Ben Gottlieb, Raymond Hamblin, Joseph Hanlon, Jesse H. Jacobs, Katie B. Kahn, Anna Katz, Marvin A. Levine, Caroline Feinberg Levitt, Earl Levy, Joseph B. Miller, Margaret Perlman, Jack Resnick, Nancy F. Samuels, Jeanette Sternberger, Max D. Sussman, Gertrude Tenbosch, Samuel I. Turkow, Louis Traxler Jr., Louise Vaughn, and Saul Witteiler, and of course those we name now in our hearts. And I invite those who are remembering or in mourning to please rise first. And then we as a community rise together in support and honor for the words of Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, uv'chayei dachol beit Yisrael, v'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'it hadar, v'it aleh, v'it halal, shemei dekudsha, barichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma, v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Osei shalom bimromav, huya aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, V'imru, amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories always and only be for a blessing. You may be seated.
Now, if you have some fruit of the vine with you, if you would please join me in our Shabbat Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza banu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon yinchilanu, zikaron le'maaseh bereshit. Ki hu yom techila lemekraye kodesh, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים. ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת לחיים. And now we will continue with our blessing over the bread, our Hamotzi prayer. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon.
Shabbat Shalom.